Hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name's Kate, and I'm the community manager at Wialon, and I'm very happy to welcome you to a new Wialon community open mic. Today's webinar is dedicated to the Wialon API. In this session, you'll learn how the Wialon API can help you go beyond simple data extraction, improving data quality and reliability to enable smarter reporting, automation, and better fleet analytics. Friends, before we begin, just a quick reminder that we'll have a Q&A session at the end. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat during the presentation, and we will answer them in the end of the presentation. Please let me know that everything works well with the video and audio. Could you leave any comments in the chat? Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. So, and now without further ado, I'd like to introduce our today's speaker, Sergey Govorunov from Asset Track. Hello, Sergey.
Hi, Kate. Happy
I'm
to be
very glad.
here.
Hello. I'm very glad to have you with us today, and I'm looking forward to your insights. So the mic is yours.
Thank you very much. I've been working with Wialon for quite some time. I started as the software implementation specialist. Then I went to the customer side and then to the developer side to build some exciting features and solutions on top of Wialon. And the idea for today's open session is I want to show how you can use API. To some extent, I want to simplify the understanding of Wialon API and what you can build and what you better to avoid to build, and what is more, what challenges you might meet during the implementation. And here, we're going to turn our data into solutions. So the data is, Wialon providing a lot of data, is the telematics data, the data that you insert into the unit properties, into the geofence, is these all the data. And to some extent, Wialon gives you these all the solutions so that you can provide it to your customers. But sometimes those solutions or the questions the customers challenge us is not enough. So Wialon is not delivering something that we need to give to the customer. That's why we need to go to Wialon API and see what data we can get from it. And here, during that webinar, we're not going to touch any technical details, how to extract the data and do that development stuff, but rather it will be an overview what you need to look into and what abstraction layers you need to shuffle. So to some extent, there are three layers. These are properties, events, and the reports. The properties, I think, is it's the fundamentals, because everything you add to the system inside of the properties, and meaning how well you define those properties, then means that how good the data will be. The event is another abstraction layer, how you get data from Wialon, and you can get the data quickly. And the report part is how you can use full capacity, I would say, of Wialon to get everything from it. And the solution obviously would combine most of the time different layers: the properties, events, report, some other methods. And let's dive into the unit properties, why it's important. And in the unit properties, we're talking mostly about these unit properties or account properties, user properties, where you have different tabs with all the settings. And the most important, I would say, the sensors, the eco driving, the trip detector, profile properties, those define what data will be, how the data will be aggregated and visualized in the Wialon itself. And during that configuration, we can also see some challenges. For example, when you deal with a lot of number of vehicles, then to configure, they make sure that you apply exactly the same settings across the fleet might be the challenge. For example, if you're working with the Teltonica devices and creating the eco-driving criteria on top of that, you would need to create the custom sensors and match these sensors as the criteria. And here, it could be that the sensor ID is not matching to the name of the criteria. And then as a result, your data will be not correct. The same for the fuel. If you have not consistent the fuel levels settings, then it would mean that the data is generated is not correct, or you'll receive a lot of false alerts on thefts and fillings. The same for the speeding. If the speeding is not correct in the advanced unit properties, then there'll be a different violation that you don't need to have. Moreover, let's say you think that our criteria, speeding criteria is the same across all the fleets, but in some of the unit properties, you have 60 seconds, and for some of them, there is no threshold of the duration. So having all these together, it's quite challenging to do. And so here, I've tried to build a solution that so you can explore it on GitHub. Is open source. It works with these as an app script on Google Sheets. It's possible for you to extract the data from Wialon and visualize it into the different tables where you can compare, analyze the consistency of the settings in the properties. And it will help you to answer the questions. Are my eco-driving criteria valid? And do all units have the field profile fields? Actually, the profile fields is extremely important because later on when you extract the data and you would like to compare the different vehicles, brands, and models to find the outliers, the profile fields is something that groups the vehicles. Moreover, working with the unit properties, when extracting the data, you will identify so-called the hidden properties where you can use. It means that you can build your application on top of Wialon API without even storing or setting up your database. Let's say you could add some custom fillings in terms of the records, the expenses, or something related to the unit, or some kind of a log of the unit. So you can use the hidden properties of the units. And by using that tool, you'll be able to view everything that is behind these unit properties. And once the data is properly set up, we can now extract the data from it. And we move to the events. Having the events, so the events is the, if you imagine the all the telematics data, all the messages on the timeline, you would see that it's quite challenging to extract some kind of insights or differentiate the data by these business contexts. So the event is a kind of a filters or intervals that extract the specific data from Wialon. So there are some of the events, for example, trips or speeding, ignition, those are the fundamental part of Wialon. If you are using Wialon mobile application, all these events are used to build the timeline of what's happening with the vehicle. And sometimes, so having all these events, you can build, you can extract different types of data. And the events in comparison to other data sources, especially with the reports, they are extremely fast. So there are no limitation applies to the events. And in Wialon, events are the pre-calculated intervals, and those intervals actually they're growing. So Gurtam team is constantly working, updating these event intervals. And maybe you remember in the couple of 2 years there was a health check feature that allows to identify the issues with the hardware, the number of messages the device is sending. So it's also basically part of the events. And if you configure these features properly, you'll be able to fetch the data on a daily basis to get understanding what's going on with the fleet. And yeah, the events, they're really fast and give the lot of data from Wialon. So they're implementation of the events. So since you have these events, all the events are having the time stamp, so start and the end. But what we did, so most of the time, the overview of the data, it requires the time stamp or per day, per week, per month buckets. So whenever you run or whenever you extract the data, you don't need to get all the events with all the beginning and end timestamp because, for example, trips. For one of the trip, if the trip detector is not properly configured, you can get up to 1,000 of trips per vehicle, and it will dramatically increase the payload, and it will increase the time when you fetch the data. So in these games, you have selectors. You can divide the data by the dates. For example, give me the trip for one vehicle for every day with the summarization. And then you'll get the summary of mileage or duration of the trip. And later on, so having that data, it will be possible for you to visualize it on kind of dashboard. And it's very important to have the dashboard because it gives the visually understanding about your data. For example, here you can see that the distance for that specific day is huge. And if you watch the scatter chart on the right side, you can see that the vehicle is basically the outlier. And there is a question why the distance of that vehicle is higher than the rest of the vehicles. So it either leads to the problems with the configuration or to the problems with the hardware installation. Maybe the ignition wire is not properly connected, and that's why the tracking device starting to draw the stars and it increases the mileage. But anyway, all these outliers are the subject to investigations. Moreover, recently Gurtam introduced a new event type, which is eco-driving, and it allows us to visualize the number of events for that time interval. And let's see, also on the scatter plot, my favorite visualization, you can see by the size of the circle, the number of violations. And again, you can see the trend. So more distance you travel and basically more duration of the trips, more violations we would have. But some of the vehicles, again, they would have a lot of, so their circles bigger in the middle of the area. And then again, there's a question why some of the vehicles have more violations. Is it because of the brand of the vehicle or the tracking device, or the specific unit group. And again, coming back to the our unit properties, if you have all the data properly inserted in the system, it will give you later on these contexts of the vehicle that you can compare between each other to give your insights. Also, as for the violations, I noticed that there is no sense to just display the number, all the violations as the graph, as you can see in the violation spark chart, spark line, because it's quite normal that someday there are more distance, less violations, but vice versa. And which is important is to build the kind of KPIs or comparisons. Let's say you can divide it per violations per mileage to calculate, let's say, what is the average number of violations per 1,000 of kilometers per vehicle, and if its number is increasing or decreasing. And another implementation is of these events is the trip management. The trip management is when you extract all the trips for the whole fleet. Maybe you remember the application driver logbook. So it's very similar. We extract all the trips, and then you can select the individual trip and run the script to change the type of the trip to business, personal, or leave a note, or you can also assign the driver. So if to some extent you forget to assign the driver to the specific vehicle, or the key was not working at the moment, it would be possible historically get and assign the specific or select all the trips that you need based on the filters and assign the driver. And what is more, there is a note feature, and the note feature is so we do not store that anywhere, and it's because you can store all the data in these hidden properties. You can add these comments or anything, and it will be all the data will be stored primarily in Wialon. And we can move forward. And so the third aspect would be the reports. And the reports is something that I would say enterprise level. When the customer needs the data, or all the data on the specific data, and it's not delivered on events, it's not in the static data, then basically you have to use the reports. And the reports you need to use when you need to get the routes or sensor tracing, the maintenance, maybe the infringements from TACO, the geofences in logistics, orders in logistics. And this is the only way how you can get these data from Wialon, using the reports. To some extent, let's say the geofences can be extracted a little bit different. So you, for example, fetch all the trips with the initial and final location, and then initial and final location, you check against every geofence in the system. But you can imagine what the pipeline, the queue of the request would be, just in order to check every single trip for all the in and out of geofences. So the most reasonable way here is to use the reports on it. And usually the architecture of extraction looks like this. We have the worker on your server. The worker basically is a cron job that checks whenever it needs to fetch the data from Wialon. So maybe it's on every hour or every day on the specific time interval. Then the worker consists of the script or ETL, extract, transform, load component, which is basically a set of set of functions that allows you to extract the data from Wialon by passing to some extent its limitation, because the main enemy when you're working with the reports will be your common sense and the Wialon limitations. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Interesting. Okay. Wialon limitations. That's strange because I can hear myself. Okay, anyway. Then let's say for example, when we have that, when we're facing this limitation, it means that for one session, you can get only one report run. So in this case, you need to have the script that would allow to duplicate the sessions, and then using the session, you need to run the reports, close the session, and open that session again, and do it everything simultaneously in parallel. So for every unit per one day, you need to run these reports and then combine everything together using this data transformation, and then put it to your database. And then in the database, there will be different aspects, different tables. So let's say eco-driving, trips, engine operation, entry to the geofences. And everywhere there will be the unit ID and the timestamp. And then using the SQL queries, you can combine these data sets into one table that makes sense to the business. And once you have that data or table, you can visualize it in the different dashboards like Grafana, Metabase, Apache, or Power BI. And we built that tool that allows you to do that. But the idea here is that you would need, again, to use that tool, or you need to extract the data from Wialon when you want to have history, let's say from Wialon, more than 400 days of history, or you want to build or provide to your customers like insights on the business, or give the fleet context to their ERP systems. Or if you have your own unique vision or unique data sources in the region, maybe you have the weather component or information from the insurances or information from the car dealership, then in theory you can combine all the data together and to build your own insights on it. And again, there are some solutions that fetch the data and visualize the data from Wialon. Take, for example, the eco-driving application. If you start investigating how it's working, so it works primarily on the reports. And if you try to select as much as possible units for the longer time interval, it fails to give you the information. Moreover, try to extract the data for 100 vehicles for a couple of months. It's also not possible because of these limitations. And the only solution is to start building it, keeping in mind all the limitations that you may face. And I want to show the example of what you can do with the data. So it's after data was aggregated, the table was built, and then it was connected to Microsoft Power BI, where you can just visualize on the left side, all the summaries for the time interval selected. And on the other side, you can see all the violations for these specified vehicles for the selected interval. And a good thing in these visualization tools that they are highly interactable. For example, you can select one of the vehicles and then automatically filter another part. Plus, if you add another business context, then you can clearly see the relations and interposition of this data. And I think we can. This was all from my side, and I want now to discuss your questions. If you have any questions on our presentation, we can discuss it.
Thank you so much, Sergey, for sharing your experience and insights with us today. I believe it was truly valuable and useful for all participants. So it seems we have only one question. Could you share the tools you use while working with Wialon API?
Oh, thank you. So it's very interesting to work with Wialon API. On the one side, you have the documentation, which is like a source of truth. On the other hand, you have your practical tool that you can try and guess if that works properly. So we are using simply text note, where you can recreate your own documentation. Also, we are using the Postman, a solution where you can test the API requests. Actually, Gurtam, if you go to their help desk, there is the list of the environments or different collection of the API requests that you can use. And also, when you're trying to work with Wialon Mobile, or you would looking for Proxyman application, it allows to checking what actually requests are sent by the application to get you the data. To some extent, you can use the browser MCPs to ask your AI to understand what is behind Wialon, so you can mimic the solution, etc. And also, it's very important to build your own documentation. Whenever you build your product, it's not going to be the Wialon product. Then you would need to have the documentation that later on your teams or the agents or anything have the source of truth, how it's actually working. Because maybe not the way how on Wialon documentation is organized is more of a list of ingredients that you can use. The same on the Wialon hosting. So there is no documentation on how to create the notification for speeding, but there are a lot of tools that a lot of different description of these tools, how you can create that. Yep. Any other questions?
Another question. Basically, you're offering a parallel solution based on the Wialon API for data analysis. Is that right?
Come again, if the trial.
Sorry?
Come again, please.
Basically, you are offering a parallel solution based on the Wialon API for data analysis. Is that right?
To some extent, yes, that's correct. That's right. So we are having the parallel solution. We are using the same method that Wialon does to extract the data. For some of the problems, the data, so some of the customers, they not demand the interface or standard interface that Wialon provides, but more focus on the data, because the Wialon is maybe 1/10 of their software portfolio that they have for their business. And they just would need to have the proper refined data from the telematics. And so our solution would allow these companies to get the benefit of powerful fleet data to their solutions.
Thank you. I see that Ravi already wants to get a demo.
Yeah, we can
Great
set
job.
up a demo and show everything. Absolutely. I would encourage you to follow us on LinkedIn and connect on LinkedIn with me, and where we can continue our conversation. And I can share everything I know about API and what is the best way to use it and not to use it, obviously.
And maybe you have any recommendation for those who just start working with Wialon API? Some gold advices?
Yeah, definitely. I would recommend to start exploring the documentation and Postman, what you can build on top. Yeah, how you can test these requests to understand the data payload. Have your IDE, Cursor or anti-gravity, whatever it is, with the AI tools to guide you to try to understand its API, etc. But again, to some extent, just testing the Wialon API doesn't make sense to me, but it's more if you want to build a solution for your customer. So if you have a problem from your customer, then probably you would need to start doing it. Otherwise, it could be just another day spent on the computer. Moreover, the best way to start using Wialon API is to start using your Wialon to full capacity. Fill up your profiles, build your proper sensors, configure minimalistic and high or saturated with information reports, build the notifications and connect them to the tasks module. And this will give you really a lot. And then when you feel that something is not there, you could start exploring Wialon API.
Thank you, Sergey. Also, we have a great comment from Dmitry. For beginners, I recommend reading the Intro to SDK articles in the Wialon Help Center.
Exactly.
So, it seems we don't have questions. Okay. Friends, you can contact Sergey directly, and I believe he will happy to answer your questions after the session. And so thank you so much, Sergey, again for your time today. Thank you to everyone who joined us. I really appreciate your time and your questions. The recording of this webinar will be available on Wialon YouTube channel, so feel free to share it with your colleagues. Also, I'd like to invite you to our next open mic session that will take place on March 17th and will be held in Spanish. So, if you speak Spanish or have Spanish-speaking colleagues, please invite them to join us. The topic of the next webinar will be hardware as a service, selling services instead of GPS hardware only. Thank you so much again, and see you at the next Wialon Community Open Mic.